I think the customers will set the pace and they will set the adoption rate. I think that we have to continue to augment a journey with digital experiences and personalization and let the customer determine the path and the pace by which they want to do that. For carriers who haven't invested in that modernization, who haven't figured out, you can't force partners or customers through one consistent path. The ones who can figure out how to do that in a modular fashion are going to win. And so to me, it's not if, it's when, and it's going to come down to execution. And that's why I feel so passionately about learning through the process with the partner, with the customer, using data to drive your decisions and then change and evolve based on that. I'm Angie Klett from Nationwide Insurance, and this is the future of insurance.
There's a reason today's most innovative P&C insurers run on Guidewire. By combining digital, core, analytics, and AI in a unified cloud platform, we deliver what you need to accelerate innovation and launch new products in just weeks instead of months or years. Access, engage, and protect more customers in differentiating new ways and optimize operations and outcomes from quote to claim and beyond. With more than 1,000 successful implementations from more than 450 insurers and the largest R&D lab, services team, and InsurTech partner ecosystem in the industry, Guidewire is the platform insurers trust to engage, innovate, and grow efficiently. Visit Guidewire.com to learn more.
Angie, it's great to sit down with you. I have to say, this is probably this is the third conversation we've had in almost as many weeks. So this has become a regular thing, but it's fantastic. I've been really interested in the things that you're working on, but thank you for taking some time to jump on the show.
No problem. Excited to be here.
You are in this area of insurance that is really, really fascinating to me and to so many people in the industry, because you're actually living that hashtag embedded insurance that is talked about so much. You're responsible for so many of the partnerships that Nationwide is getting into and new ways of thinking about distribution and bringing products, developing products and getting them out to the market. Can you tell people a little bit about what it is you do and your team?
Sure. So at Nationwide, I get the opportunity to lead corporate development. And within corporate development, I have an array of areas that are in the build, buy, or partner side. So we have mergers and acquisitions, we have ventures, and we have strategic partnerships. Recently, I got added the brokerage. And so we are building capabilities. We are out looking for buying and investing in capabilities and also partnering. And the really cool thing about the area is that some of that is intake from my team and some of it's intake for the business, all of it on behalf of enhancing and accelerating our strategies. And the really cool thing about what I get to do is put the customer at the center of everything. And so that's really, I think, a little bit today, what we'll get into is just kind of that passion around letting the customer determine our path.
Yeah. So you and I have talked about, in particular, some of the auto partnerships that you've done, auto insurance, auto makers, different ways of distributing auto insurance. Nationwide really stuck out to me as one of the earlier movers and most active and largest scale in terms of kind of the brands that you've been working with in this new way of thinking about how auto insurance is being sold, and not just sold, but priced and created through connected cars and the kind of real-time, multifaceted, context-aware data streams that we can get from a connected car versus the more traditional kind of 1.0 telematics of the dongle and the app, which are fine. But you guys were an early player on taking it to the next step. Your partnership with Ford is one example that was announced really early. Rivian, I mean, the list keeps going. But what sort of sparked that? And can you tell us a little bit about some of the things that you're doing in the auto world in particular?
Sure. So the thing that really sparked it was a conversation between our research and development within product, our strategic partnerships team, and the OEM. Ford, for example, has been a fabulous partner of ours. And what we realized was that in order for us to continue the usage kind of driven, data-driven rating plans, we need to get that data in-house. And Ford was looking to meet customers where they are with their brand.
Mm.
And so I think once you get past those kind of initial hurdles of understanding value for each partner, you're able to kind of find the right fit. And for Ford, it was a data pass integration path and a white labeling experience, as well as some great data and insights and partnerships where we get to learn together about the customer, a little bit about marketing, a little bit about the experience in the dealership, the experience through Ford Insurance, and then how we leverage the data together after that customer comes through the process. It's been a tremendous partnership.
Well, so I am curious. You use the word learn a lot in all the conversations we have. It does seem to be really central, this kind of openness. What are some of the things that you went into and were surprised about, or how are you structuring learning to make sure you do stay open and catch what being more customer centric might kick off in terms of opportunities and ways to engage?
Sure. For each partner that we implement at Nationwide, and right now we have 55 plus partners across, some managed by corporate development and some managed by the business, but all leveraging our partnership platform. And that's a really important point. I mean, one of the things that I think that has given Nationwide the advantage has been the modernization of our core systems that allowed us then to build a digital chassis. And that digital chassis we call the partnership platform, and it houses our APIs. It houses our digital products, and it's something that's actually used across the entire enterprise. It's not just for strategic partnerships, but that has been the crux and sort of the brain of the operation, and it has enabled us to really go to market different ways with partners. And each partner that we approach, we talk to them about an integration path and a learning plan. And that integration path could be as simple as starting with a marketing link and some marketing materials, and can go all the way through to truly embedded in their experience. The customer never leaves their experience, and they can bind digitally within their experience. But for each partner, we have to figure out what they need, what we need, what the customer experience is, and then we design from there what's the best integration path and what's the best learning plan that we want to get out of that. Sometimes it's about brand. I mean, the Nationwide brand is very important through this entire thing. And although the customer may start with a partner brand, once that customer binds, all of the material that they get and the servicing and the claims processing comes then from Nationwide. And so our brand is front and center in the experience post-bind. And the partner's brand is also resonating in their experience. And I think that's a really important point. When the customer is in the partner journey, it's fine that the partner's brand is front and center. We want them to be front and center because that's what drew that customer into that experience.
Yeah. You've told me about the Rivian partnership that you have, where you are fully, it's like one of the steps in the vehicle, like when your reservation is finally accepted for manufacturing and you're setting up what options and how you want your car built. It's one of those steps is to secure the insurance.
Right.
It's just part of the flow.
It's just part of the flow.
Really,
it's as if it's part of the car purchasing process, and the insurance is just one step in that buying process. The person never leaves the Rivian website, the Rivian experience, unless they choose to.
Right.
In which case they actually call the Rivian agency, and they can then opt through buying that way.
And for Rivian, they need insurance to be in place to deliver that vehicle, like any car dealer would, and since they're selling direct. But also, if the insurance isn't in place or there's any issue with it, that then hurts their core business, because then they have a hiccup in being able to recognize that sale. So insurance here, it's easier for the customer to embed it, but it's also, I mean, thinking about from Rivian's side, not that they're against any revenue they might get by being the agent on that sale, but I imagine it's more important to them about facilitating their core business, that if anything gets in the way or creates friction in that core business of selling the car and all the subscription services and data services they want to sell tied to that, or charging services, whatever, insurance is sort of a potential kind of fly in the ointment in their core strategy, which I think some people don't realize that. They think it's just like, oh, it's another revenue stream for them. They'll make commission. I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's really what they care about.
No, I don't, not at all. As a matter of fact, they're one of our most customer-centric partners. If anything in the process impacts the customer experience or creates a customer pain point, they want to eliminate it or alleviate it absolutely immediately. And there's been a lot of work with us in our combined experiences, everything from the original offer and how those screens, those landing pages looked, to the billing and how that final payment is taken. All of that has to happen seamlessly within the experience of Rivian.
Yeah. I mean, back to the core systems, like that is a huge lift for a lot of people on the system side. So Nationwide went through a modernization before you started doing any of this, right?
That's exactly right.
What are some of the key capabilities on the system side? Is it just like cloud enabled or cloud based and APIs? Does it sort of boil down to that? Or are there other key things that have been like, this is the unlock we needed to make sure it was in place?
It was the modernization, the cloud base, and the APIs. I mean, we have 385 internal APIs and 52
Wow.
that are public that would allow you to go all the way through bind. And those APIs get us about 10 plus billion pings annually that come through that. But there's other things that we had to consider. PCI compliance. If you're going to take payment, you have to have PCI compliance. And so we've done a lot of work to ensure that not only are the APIs available, but the APIs through the entire customer value stream are built in a way that protects, our secret sauce, protects the partner's secret sauce, and also makes us compliant across all of those steps. And I think PCI is actually a great example of one of those things that you would just not think of. You think, okay, well, modernize your system, build a platform, connect with an API, and you're done.
Yeah.
No, that's not how it works. About the time you want to take payment in a partner's ecosystem, you have to ensure that there's PCI compliance through that process. And we've done that.
Yeah.
I don't think we would have been able to do a lot of these things had we not invested in that modernization. And if we didn't build sort of a flexible offering within that platform, that digital brain, so to speak, that ecosystem of offerings, I guess, is kind of what it is. And there's all sorts of things in there. Those things can be mixed and matched in an easy way that will make it feel, and oftentimes it is, custom to a partner, but not as expensive as building a snowflake over and over again.
Yeah. I don't know what you can share on the number side, but maybe directionally, one of the things around these partnerships is it real or is it hype? Are we saying like, everything's gonna be sold this way, but it's not really the way it's going? Are you seeing in different partnerships that the take rates, the engagement is what you were hoping for? Maybe it's better, or there are particular things that become unlocks that are either standing in the way today, or you've changed and suddenly the take rates are where they are? It's a multi-part question, but I want to leave it at that. Is the customer acceptance of this, is it just hype, or is there reality that, customers actually are taking these offers when they're embedded into a partner's workflow?
I don't think it's hype. They are taking it when it's embedded in the workflow. The experience, though, will dictate the adoption, and the customer's level of trust in the process will determine their take rate.
Yeah.
And so that's why the learning plans are so critically important. We have a lot of integration paths, and you can build, a set of repeatable integration paths. But if the customer experience and the learning plans don't find that customer to go through that path, then you have to adjust. And that's exactly what we've done. The deeper the partnership in terms of having a customer be within the experience and not leave the experience, the better the take rate and the more scalable the partnership is.
Yeah.
And I think that while marketing links and QR codes are effective in some environments, I don't think that's where the future lies. I think that when you meet the customer where they are and they never leave their intended purpose for being there, that's when you have the higher take rates.
Yeah.
And I think we would all love to say, oh, it's going to scale and it's going to be, everyone's going to buy digitally or something along those lines. At the end of the day, the customers will determine the pace of adoption.
Yeah.
And it's on us to figure out, I think, the best way to serve up our offerings. And sometimes that may mean that we bring in an intermediary through the process, or we offer an intermediary through the process, an agent. And sometimes it means that they'll be able to go straight through in a digital experience, but the customer decides that, not us.
Yeah. You sparked a question I wanted to get to, but I'm gonna stop that one for a second and get to this instead, because it's tied to the take rate. The other thing, I was actually just doing a talk on this the other day, and people said, yeah, they might take the offer up front, but then on renewal, they're going to go shop and they're going to get a cheaper price. And maybe there just hasn't been enough time yet, but is there any indication about retention? Is it different? Is it because there's naysayers that are like, that's fine just to get the car sold or the house sold or whatever it is you're embedding into. But when it comes to renewal, they're not going to stick. Is there any indication of that?
Oh, no. Our retention looks really good in comparison to what we had originally expected. We thought that there would be some churn, and that's included in our learning plans. The other thing that we found really interesting is we thought that it would be a pretty high percentage of monoline, single product purchases.
You saved me another question. That was another thing.
That is also not the case. It's not as high as agency, but that's one of the great things about Nationwide is that we have that product breadth. So it's easy for us to follow up a sale with a follow-up in a cross sale of the other products that we have. And we're finding that a good portion are taking that multi-line when you do follow up. And sometimes the partners follow up. And that's fine too. If they're a licensed intermediary, they follow up. So the key, I think, is what the customer wants, but we've seen good take rates when it's embedded, and we've seen higher multi-line percentages than what we thought. And our retention has been matching or better than other channels. So I don't think that's true. I do believe that your partners, you have to think through your partners' customers, and you have to find those partners whose brands and customer bases overlap with your customer base. And then you're able, I think, to find the right fit. If you get a mismatch, you will see churn. Yeah.
I think those are excellent points. And it's interesting that people fall on the negative side for everything without recognizing, well, you could also, yes, you may lose some sales that would have been multi-line had they been sold in a traditional way, but you may conquest other ones. It's like when I see people talk about sharing data through some of the data exchanges for connected cars, instead of working directly with the OEM, if you put your data there and you're making it open like that, the customer could port it to another carrier. And so then I hear we're going to lose everyone. And, we give them the discount, and then they're just going to take the data that they're good drivers with and just go to someone else. So, well, you're going to be on the receiving end of that too. It was the same argument the telecom industry made with number portability. It's well, once people can take their phone numbers, they're all going to go to the other carriers. It's well, but some of them are going to be doing that from those other carriers. So it's not zero sum, or maybe it is zero sum. Ultimately, people will move around anyway, but for some reason we tend to think when we're doing it differently, we're always going to be on the losing end of that, but there's movement in all directions. And if your offering is good, you can still pick that up.
Yeah. And if you make it easy, at the end of the day, the equation isn't that difficult, right? It's about time, value, and money, right? Yeah. Ease, time, and money. And I think that if you crack that nut, they will, and you have a great brand like we do, I think customers may give you that benefit and not shop as much if you make it easy for them.
Yeah.
I also want to say about the learning plans, you brought that up a couple of times. We have identified new offerings. So I know we tend to, and the industry tends to, let's jump to embedded insurance. Is it going to scale? Is it going to be the next the next thing for distribution. And I think it's an important item to learn into. And we've had some, as you said, we started early. We've had some great learnings. We're seeing that take off, but that's through a series of iterations in the customer pathing. The thing that I think we didn't expect that we learned was there's other pain points in those journeys that you can solve for your customer. And out of that, we actually have created now 3 or 4 different digital product offerings that are not acquisition related. They're at verification. Customer gets down the process in a place, in a journey where they need insurance and they're asked to verify it. And at that pain point, the customer gets up, heads to their office to get their deck page, or they have to leave the journey and somebody has to call. Maybe the partner has to call, the customer has to call. Well, by creating verification, we've been able to take something that was on average 12 minutes and make it 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And through that, we've created alternative revenue streams. We've reduced calls into the call center, which creates expense efficiency. Those are the types of things that you learn when you truly pick a partner that is sharing a customer journey with you. Yeah. You can create new product offerings. You can create new revenue streams. Now, we're not going to cut points off our expense ratio, but it is a place where customers are absolutely delighted that something that would have taken them away from their journey doesn't. And in 5 seconds, boom, they're verified and they go on about their day. And that I think is where you'll earn trust, you'll earn that retention that you're looking for that's more valuable in some cases than the distribution side.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think I'm glad you mentioned expense ratio. Is there's such a focus on that in the industry, and there's nothing wrong with being expense aware and efficient. Like I'm an ex-consultant, I love that stuff, but you can't efficiency your way to success in this industry. It's about loss ratio. There's so much more money at stake there, and it's about retention. So what are you doing that will hold that customer? And you're the path of least resistance. You're the path of most joy because you're the easiest to deal with. And it's just all you get to be is the trusted partner who's there for them, not the thing that's a pain in the neck to deal with, who you hope is there if something goes wrong. It's a totally different framing of it. So I love that, like being open to what they actually need and responding to that. You create new experiences or products that's thinking about how do we tick that point of retention up another notch.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah,
I think if we can do that, it's almost better than the take rate on embedded. I mean, it in terms of value.
Yeah.
So I think both are really important, and you have to learn into both.
Yeah. I love you keep saying learn into instead of lean into. I love that. Can we talk about agents a little bit?
Sure.
So when I did this presentation, I was waiting for it, but someone's like, what about agents? So we talk about, does embedded insurance mean so many carriers get cut out of the competition because it's just, on Rivian, it's you and it's Cincinnati, or in, the Ford deal, it's Nationwide's one of them, and there's some others, but it's not, Ford doesn't say, great, you chose that you want insurance. Here's the 600 carriers who are licensed to write in your state. Tell us which one you want. That's not what embedded insurance is. So there's 590 something who don't get a chance to compete for that risk. So I expected the questions to be like, how do we survive? But instead, someone whose agency distributed is, well, what does that mean for our agents if they're not a part of that? And you've mentioned agents in that flow a few times. Nationwide obviously is a very strong agency business. It's a key part of what you do. How do you think about that? So what is the agent in a future where it's more partnership and embedded driven?
Well, I'll go back to my history. I was a product manager for auto and spent a lot of time in the field sitting across the desk of agents. And at the time I was in a product that was sold through exclusive and independent agents. And so I do have a very empathetic point of view when it comes to agencies, because they're very critical to us and they're very critical to our success, agents and brokers. And I think that the way that I like to think about agencies is that we have to let the customer determine their path and their buying options.
Yeah.
And a lot of times as products get more complex, or they are a greater portion of our customers' net worth, they may not trust a digital interaction to go all the way through buying. They may get to a point within that interaction and look for that trusted advice and counsel. And so we want our agents to be there for them.
Yeah.
And some of the partners, like I said, have set up agencies, and some customers want to work directly with the carrier, and some customers want agents. And so I think it really is important to think about the entire option set as it's related to the customer, not as it's related to the carrier or the distribution force. It's the customer that's going to determine the path. And I think we want our agents to be successful. And so I think one of the focus areas is to continue to help them become digital. And then when customers select them, they're able to meet them where they are in their journey. And honestly, I think it's very much determined by the product. The more complicated the product is, the more underwriting the product requires, the more likely it is that a customer is going to go to one of our agent partners and to get that advice and counsel. So they're very important to us.
Yeah. I think that's a great perspective on it. The customers don't care what we want. They care what they want, and we have to be able to meet that. And it doesn't matter if we don't want to, or ultimately they're going to vote with their wallets. So
that's right.
We need to follow what they care about. And that breeds more trust. And then you start to get the conversations about bringing other lines in. And, if you met them where they wanted to be met, then that opens the door to so much more. And if you didn't, you never even got the chance for that door to be opened.
That's exactly right.
I love that attitude. Angie, where's everything heading? So like you're playing in the space that a lot of developments are brewing in right now. And obviously your work is much broader than just embedded. But where do you see this heading? Is this the way that every line is going to be sold? Are there other things going on? Where do you see the future, of distribution, of insurance products more broadly heading for us?
I think the customers will set the pace and they will set the adoption rate. And if we are able to make it easy and the experience faster and better, that adoption will be impacted. But none of it can happen without trust. And so while you can take a process and make it digital, you have to constantly go back and determine, are you building trust throughout this process? Is the customer dropping out at certain places? If so, why are they dropping out? And I think that that will determine the success and the pace that people move through this. And the more, like I said, the more complicated the product is, or frankly, if you take homeowners, for example, it's a great one where that's in many cases a customer's biggest asset in their life, maybe outside of their 401k or their retirement. And so they may not want to go through that in a completely digital fashion. And that's okay. I think that we have to continue to augment a journey with digital experiences and personalization, and let the customer determine the path and the pace by which they want to do that. And I just believe that that's what will determine. And the way I look at my role and the role of my team is to be there to learn those things, up front, and then figure out where to invest further, and then to be ahead of the curve. And for carriers who haven't invested in that modernization, who haven't figured out that you can't force partners or customers through one consistent path. The ones who can figure out how to do that in a modular fashion are going to win.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's not if, it's when, and it's going to come down to execution. And that's why I feel so passionately about learning through the process with the partner, with the customer, using data to drive your decisions, and then change and evolve based on that data.
I mean, it's all coming full circle, but you started with is that customer centricity, and going into that with that learning mindset and having the flexibility to respond to what they tell you they need, and they're demonstrating either through pain points or through what they're choosing and what they're not choosing. But being open to that, so and having those tools to respond. And so you didn't tell me like the future is going to look like this, and so this is what we have to give them. It's the future is going to look like what the customers tell us it's going to look like, and we need to be ready to go when we pick up those signals from them, so we can respond and build what's necessary.
And I think if you believe you're going to build it every time you meet a partner, you're going to quickly figure out that the margin is not there.
What do you mean?
You better come into this with a level of flexibility that allows for customization, but not a new build every single time.
Right.
Because there will not be enough money for everyone involved.
Yeah.
And you will quickly figure out that building something new each time is expensive and takes too long.
Yeah. Well, it's like you said, you've got this huge library of APIs. So having that library you can call on instead of writing a new book every time, that new deal comes up. That's really critical. Having scale in your flexible tools.
That's right. And the piece that I think sometimes people forget about is the level of investment that you have to make in capabilities. The capabilities to manage your outreach to partners, the capabilities to track partnerships within your core systems, back so that you can come back and report and have the data that you need to fill out those learning plans and then to decide what you're going to do next. You've got to have the courage to walk away when it's not working. The partner metadata, the landing pages, the compensation that comes, through this process. And those are types of things that people think, oh, I'll just put an API out there and people go through my process. But you need a whole back office set of capabilities, and those capabilities need to be repeatable.
Yeah. Well, you use the word jest, and I always say if you hear jest, like watch out for what you're going to hear next, because someone is grossly oversimplifying the situation. Angie, we just are about to run out of time, but that was great. I really appreciate you taking more time to sit down with me. We should just schedule the next 2 weeks of bumping into again. But it's great. Thank you for this.
No problem. I absolutely love this topic. I do believe it's the future of the industry. I just want us to not force something. I'd rather let the customers determine the pace and path.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. Great. Thank you so much, Angie.
No problem. Take care.
It's great to sit down with Angie. Thank you to her for making some time, to the team at Nationwide for giving us Angie for a bit, and to all of you for tuning in. Nationwide really is, for such a large carrier, really nimble. And it's great to hear some of the reasons behind that. Obviously, the technology, the enablement of it, and the scalability of those tools that they have and the things they built like the APIs, but also it's that mentality. So when Angie keeps talking about the learning, and I really keyed in on that because I think it's so critical. And having talked to her, it is a really critical piece of how they go about these things. And if you don't have that mentality, I don't care how big you are or aren't, you're not going to be able to move fast, take advantage of these opportunities, test things, learn, get better at it, and all that. And so really great to sit down with Angie and share that with all of you. I hope this was valuable. I hope it got your wheels turning and you thinking about, well, what could we do? How could we think about partnerships and opportunities to find new ways to interact with customers or potential customers and grow our market? Great thoughts from Angie. You can check out more on their partnership site. I'm going to link to that in the show notes. And of course, you can always get more on the future of insurance right here at future-of-insurance.com. You can get the books, thought leadership pieces, and you can also get other episodes of the podcast. And on thought leadership, Angie is one of the people who gave me some of her time that I quoted and talked to for my piece on the future of auto insurance in the 2030s. Really critical things going on. It's great to get Nationwide's perspective because they are so in those moves, those changes coming to personal auto. They've been investing and planting the seeds, as I talk about, doing all of that to see where the market's going to go and make sure that they are relevant, thriving player in that future. You could be too. You just need to think about it. And it's more than just auto. Those same dynamics are at play elsewhere too. So it's an important thing to grab. Go to future-of-insurance.com, click on thought leadership, get right to the auto piece. You can grab the books, podcast, all of it. Keep moving your thoughts forward. And thank you to Guidewire for sponsoring this episode. Thanks, everyone.